Hello there and welcome to Full Chat with me, David Prutton.
And me, Ewan Thomas, celebrating everything we love about being on two wheels. Now, Full Chat is powered by Bikesure. As the UK's largest independent motorcycle insurance broker, Bikesure will tailor a quote to your exact needs, saving you money on your annual bike, scooter or moped insurance.
Don't forget to press subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss an episode, or you can press the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from.
Now, we often say the word legend, but truthfully, today's guest, this is a proper legend in the biking world. We're talking about the first female to bike around the world, 35,000 miles, more than 40 years ago. So that was 1982 to 84. Remember, no sat-nav, no biking aids, no real help, just one woman and a mission to do what she did. An absolute legend. She's an author and a very successful architect, the one, the only, Elspeth Beard.
Am I supposed to say hello?
You can do, Elspeth.
We definitely need you to talk because we need to hear your life story is so inspirational. So please talk. Yeah, brilliant.
Elspeth, it's our absolute pleasure. This is one that I've been looking forward to for such a long period of time. Having followed your story, having read about what you've done, obviously not just on a bike, but everything that comes with this beautiful and well-rounded life that you've lived. Let's go back to the start, though, before the journey. What sowed the seed of your love of motorcycles?
Oh, well, I rode my first motorbike when I was 16. It was actually a Husqvarna, and I had been expelled from school, and I was sent to a college in London to finish off my A-levels. And it was at this college that I met this small group of motorcyclists, and we became friends. And one of them was taking his Husqvarna down to the Salisbury Plain and asked if I wanted to come along. So literally, that was my the first time I ever rode a bike. And to be honest, I thought, yeah, it's okay, but it wasn't. Oh yeah, I really love this or anything like that. It was fun, and I think it was about 6 months later, I bought Simon, one of these friends. He was selling one of his bike to buy a bigger bike. And so I bought his Yamaha YB100, and it was simply to get around London. So up until then, I'd been cycling around London, and so I thought, So anyway, so I bought this YB 100cc, and it was simply, easy, cheap way to get around London. That was it. And again, I didn't think. I mean, I did kind of. I suppose it was my first wheels. It was my first feeling of a bit of independence, and so I did, really enjoy it. And I used to hack all around London. It was brilliant. And I had that for a year, and then I got a bit bored because it was a bit slow, so I wanted something a bit faster. So then I bought myself a Honda 250, and I had that for a year. And then in 1979, I having worked in a pub for about 8 or 9 months, I saved enough money, and I bought myself my BMW 60/6. And I think it was that bike that I thought, actually, you could go places on this. This is a serious motorbike, and you could go places on it.
Sorry, my mind is blown here, right? So you go from like being a slightly rebellious, cheeky, naughty rascal who gets sent to London to finish your education. You buy a bike, you enjoy it, it's all right. And then how on earth does your mindset then go, right, I've had a couple of bikes now. Why don't I try and plan to do something absolutely ridiculous and ride around the world? I mean, how does that come about?
I didn't buy the 600 to ride it around the world. I just wanted a bigger bike, and I just thought, well, so my first trip I did was around Scotland, and then I went around Ireland, and then I went around Europe. So it was just gradually, each trip got slightly further afield, got slightly longer. I was away for slightly longer time. And then in the summer of 1981, I decided to fly out to Los Angeles and buy myself a 750, old BMW 750, and ride it from the West Coast across to the East Coast. And so I did that in the summer of 81. And I was doing my first 3 years architecture during all this time. Um, so all the trips to Ireland and Scotland and Europe, they were all during the Easter holidays, Christmas holidays or whatever, and summer holidays. Anyway, so then in 81, I did this trip across America, and I kind of got this kind of thought just popped into my head when I was probably riding in, I don't know, Arizona or, you know, and I thought, I actually wondered whether it was possible to ride a bike around the world. Because as you say, it was very different times. The world seemed a much, much larger place. We didn't have any of the technology or, that we have now. And it was much, much, much harder to find out about countries and how to travel, or, kind of what to expect. And I didn't even know whether it was possible to ride around the world. But it was just a fleeting thought. I mean, I didn't plan to do it then or anything like that. It was just a fleeting thought. And then it was a combination of things that happened to me the year after. So when I was at uni studying architecture, I met and fell in love with this guy. And he broke up with me about 2 or 3 months before my finals. Or before our finals. And so I ended up finding it really hard to work. And so I got a lousy degree, really, really lousy degree, for my part 1 in architecture. And so I was brokenhearted. I didn't really know whether I should continue doing architecture or not, because architecture is like a 7-year course. So it was another like 4 years to go. So I sort of, I don't know. I just thought I need to get away. I just need. I was at a kind of crossroads in my life, not really knowing what I wanted to do, and I was feeling pretty miserable and depressed. And so I thought I just need to get away. So I thought, well, why don't I try and see if I can ride my bike around the world? And so I don't know. So then, and once you've kind of said you're going to do it, then everybody expects you to do it, and I just kind of couldn't really go back, if you know what I mean. But in fact, it was great. It really focused my mind. I spent the next. So I got myself a job in a pub, and I worked in a pub for 3.5 months or 4 months, and I saved £2,500. And during that time, I stripped my bike down. I learned about it. I bought myself a Haynes manual, and just learned everything that I could about my bike, because I knew perfectly well in India or Southeast Asia, nobody was going to be able to fix, the bike, and it was going to be down to me. And by this stage, my bike was already 8 years old, and it had 45,000 miles on it. So all stuff like the seals and the gaskets and everything needed to be changed. So while I was stripping the engine down, when I put it back together again, I made sure everything I could do, I kind of replaced to get it in the best condition that I could before I left. So in October of 82, I had my money from the pub, and I had my bike, as good as it was going to be, and I shipped it to New York, and that's where I started.
Elspeth, there's an iconic picture of you sat very kind of laissez-faire on the bike, leather jacket, the leather boots, jeans. I mean, as an epic adventurer goes, it's such it's this type of picture that just makes you want to jump on a bike and get going. The bike looks amazing. You look amazing. The panniers. The panniers look amazing. And they were ones that you riveted together yourself, did I read?
Yeah.
Like, to get all of your stuff on board to be able to take it with you?
Yeah, well, the thing is, then you couldn't buy all the gear and adventure stuff that they make now. I mean, I started off with these soft throw over panniers and just a bag tied on the back seat. That's how I started the journey. So all of America, I just had these soft luggage with a tank bag. And then it was when I was in Sydney. So when I got to Sydney, I was completely broke. I arrived in Sydney with £50 left, and so fortunately I had people to stay. So anyway, but when I was there, I met this guy, this Aussie guy who had ridden his BMW from Sydney to Europe, and he had hand built and handmade his own aluminium panniers. I mean, his bike is. I mean, if you think my panniers and bike were ugly, you should have seen his. I mean, his was just extraordinary. He made an aluminium tank bag and an aluminium fairing. I mean, I didn't go that far. At least I stopped with the panniers and the top box.
Like Mad Max.
It was completely. He was a lovely man, but he was very, very eccentric, and so he persuaded me. He said, "Look, if you go to Southeast Asia and India, all your stuff's going to be nicked. You need to make yourself some proper proper luggage system that people can't steal stuff from." So I spent 3 months with him in every weekend. Building these panniers out of it was literally just angle aluminium with sheet aluminium, and then just wrapped around it and riveted it. But I know they didn't look great, but I tell you what, they were very practical.
Elspeth, can I just quickly ask though, just rewind the clock slightly before this adventure starts? I just want to know, because you're in a time in society where it's hard to keep in contact with people. There aren't mobile phones, as we said. There's no internet. What on earth did your family and friends think when you said, "Hang on a minute, I love motorbikes. I've got a bit of news for you. I'm going to attempt to ride around the world." I mean, were your family worried for you? Because you're a female, and it's a big wide world out there. It can be dangerous. What backlash did you come up against, or did you have any resistance from family and friends? Because what you were going to undertake was massive.
I had a lot of resistance, particularly from my mother. She did everything she could possibly do to stop me from going and dissuade me from going. And I mean, she was a doctor. Both my parents, were doctors, and she absolutely hated motorbikes with a vengeance. She worked in A&E and house jobs and saw all these injured motorcyclists coming in. So she hated motorbikes. So she did everything that she could do to stop me. But kind of when I make my mind up to do something, I kind of, I'm pretty determined to do it. And then my friends, I don't know, my friends, it was more slight sort of amusement, really. I think they thought I'd be back in 3 months, to be honest with you. I mean, they went along with it, but I'm not sure whether half of them thought I'd actually ever go. And if I did go, I'd probably, be back short, in a few months' time. So, but I didn't really care what people thought, to be honest with you. I think if you worry too much about that stuff, you never do anything. So I mean, it kind of upset me that my parents couldn't understand, I suppose, or encourage or support me in any way. But I mean, now being a mother myself, I can understand it a bit better. But yeah. And then, I mean, the bike press, I wrote to the bike press. I tried to get some interest in my trip and try and get them to sponsor me, which was, of course, I was just a laughing stock. But it's fine. It was, I didn't expect much, to be honest with you, but you got to try these things. So anyway, so I just left.
I love the fact that you just knit it together with I just left. So you've got to ship the bike. You've got to get yourself over to the other side of the world. You've got to think, what am I doing and where am I going? Is it as simple? I mean, you do make it sound very simple because it's just the way you are, Elspeth. It's adventures in your blood and your bones, isn't it? So is it a case of get to New York, check the bike's ready, and then where are you going? Well, I'm going west for as far as I possibly can go.
Exactly.
Is that what it was?
Exactly. Yeah, it was pretty much. I mean, I'd get to places. I mean, I decided to head west because I had been to America the year before.
And you'd gone the other way the year before, hadn't you? You'd gone west to east the year before. Right,
Exactly.
okay.
And so I knew America. I knew the roads were okay. People spoke English. It was a kind of easy place to start. I mean, I was 23 years old when I left, so I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. And, for me to venture east and, very shortly I'd be in Turkey and then Iran and then Pakistan and then India. It was all just too much for me to, and also I didn't think my money would last that long trying to get to Australia that way, because I always reckoned I'd or hoped I'd get to either to New Zealand or Australia, where I could work and earn some more money to do the next leg of the journey or whatever. So, so having done America the year before, I sort of felt I had just about enough money to get myself to Australia. It was relatively civilized in America, as I say, roads were good, English speaking, I get petrol everywhere. And I'd been there before. So that's why I started off in America. And I suppose in another way, it was much harder to turn around and come home.
Yeah.
You got a big ocean and it's much, much harder to but on a sort of day-to-day basis, I very much, I think today people just over-plan everything so ridiculously.
I was going to ask you about that in terms of over planning. Do you think almost that innocence or that the fact that you didn't know what was going on? Because nowadays you get on the internet, you'd say, right, avoid that country. Yeah. They're at war. Don't go here. It's going to take you 3 weeks to get a visa to enter that country. The fact that you were 23, and I won't say naive at all, but ambitious and just went for it. Do you think that was to your advantage? Because if I was planning a route now, I think I would overload the senses. I'd be too panicky about, be careful there, I'm going to be robbed there, mind myself there. The fact that you didn't really, obviously you had a route or a plan, but you didn't know what you were going into, was that an advantage?
I think it was a huge advantage. I mean, I think now it's just too much information, and what you don't know, you don't worry about. And actually, you find when you get there, it isn't a problem anyway. I traveled through, Iran, which was at war with Iraq. And, the revolution had happened a few years beforehand. And everybody said, oh, you'll never get in and it'll be really dangerous. And actually, they were the friendliest people. I mean, it was a bit, it wasn't easy. Obviously, there were roadblocks and tanks and soldiers everywhere. But, I got through it. And actually, the people in the country were incredibly kind and helpful and did whatever they could to help me get through. So and I suppose in those days, because you didn't have this 24/7 news that you have now, being bombarded, and and they seem to make everything. They seem to be putting this sort of fear in people all the time, telling them everything is so bad and awful and dangerous. And actually, when you get there, it just kind of isn't most of the time. Well, certainly my experience. I mean, even now when I travel, I don't really read the news and stuff. I just try to, I mean, it's more, I will speak to friends of mine who have been to a country, and I'll find out from them. But I don't listen to the news.
Would you say there was anywhere on the trip that you did fear for your safety?
I mean, Iran was tricky, I have to say. Iran was not easy.
Sorry to put an else, but just tell us, I mean, because I'm trying to, it's hard to process this when you're talking about it. Just from a geographical point of view, how you get to Iran off from the west coast of America, just for my small brain. So by the Iran, yeah, so you're scared in Iran, but bobbing around before then, go on.
Yeah, well, anyway, okay. So I went from Los Angeles to New Zealand and then to Australia.
Right.
I then rode across Australia, having worked in Sydney for 6 months. I then shipped my bike from Perth straight to Singapore while I travelled up through Indonesia just on public transport because it was too difficult and too expensive. And you couldn't get ships from island to island to island to island. It was just too complicated and too expensive. And I couldn't find out any information about it at all. So I shipped my bike straight to Singapore.
But I'm still. You make it sound so simple.
Blowing both of our minds,
Shipping a bike in the 1980s. How on earth do you go about booking that? How long are you away from the bike for? I mean, you make it sound like, just shipped it across. I mean, that must have taken logistically. That's hard.
Well, in those days, we didn't have Google or computers, so you had to go to a phone box and you had to get what was called yellow pages. Well, it was yellow pages in this country. I think in Australia, it was called the white pages, I think, from memory. And you would look up shipping companies, and then you'd just spend an hour or 2 hours phoning them all up, finding which ones had routes to Australia, or not Australia, but Singapore. And then you would kind of narrow it down, and then you'd get prices, and then you'd work out the size of your crate.
But you're doing this all on your own. You don't have a backup team. You don't have a crew with you. That's what I mean. Nowadays, a TV crew, you'd have 20 people, researchers, you'd have planners, you'd have local people. I mean, you're doing this all. You're 23 years of age and you're doing all of this on your own. When I was 23, I don't know what I was doing. I was probably sponging off my parents still. I mean, wow.
Well, if you have a dream, you have to just do it, don't you? It's really not that difficult. It's just tedious and takes a long time. And it did in those days take a long time. So then I'd find a shipping company and then I'd take the bike down there. Then I would supervise them crating the bike up, because otherwise they'd probably, damage it or something. And then I'd sign all the paperwork, pay my money. They'd tell me because the ship, I think, from Perth to Singapore took like 5 or 6 weeks. So during that time, I filled that time traveling up through Indonesia and then travel back down to Singapore through Malaysia on buses and trains or whatever. And then I picked my bike up in Singapore. And then I started again and rode up through Malaysia and then up through Thailand, right up to the northern bit of Thailand. But you had to just kind of, it was very important to be flexible and adaptable. And I think, and because I really didn't plan that far ahead. I mean, I knew from Singapore I wanted to go north. I knew I wanted to see Malaysia. I wanted to go and see northern Thailand, go to the hill tribes and see that in northern Thailand. And that was kind of really as far as I got. I just knew from Singapore I'm heading north. And then I'd look at a map and then I'd see what there was to see along the way. And I'd think, shall I go the East Coast or shall I go the West Coast? Or maybe I'd do a bit of the East and then I can ride across. And I was also quite governed by the weather because I hate getting wet. So I would very much, like for example, when I started off the trip and left New York, I headed north because I thought, well, I'll go up to Niagara Falls because I'll see them. And then it was freezing. So I thought, right, enough of this. So I'm heading south. Yeah. So then I went from Niagara Falls down to New Orleans because it was much warmer down there. And then I traveled across America through all the southern states, through Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, through to California. And it was nice and warm. So I was kind of quite governed by the climate, and if it was cold and wet up there, I went the other way, but all generally going in a westerly direction, and that was as much as I planned. And there were certain things I wanted to see. Like in Australia, there's not, in the outback there's a lot to see, but obviously there's Ayers Rock. Well, I wanted to see Ayers Rock. So there were certain things and places that I wanted to see, and I'd kind of put them on a map, and then I'd see what the best way to join them up was, and then I'd throw in the weather, and then I'd kind of vaguely work out my route. But then I was always prepared to change my route very easily if things changed.
Hopefully if you're watching this, you just see me, you and I just sat there with our mouth open going, what? let's just
I know, because it's the way people don't do it now, but it was the way we did it then.
Exactly. That's the thing that we're trying to comprehend it. Let me just have a quick bit of mid-show housekeeping to help me get my breath back. If you haven't already, please press subscribe on YouTube so that you never miss an episode. Or press the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcast from. Elspeth, in this, and you said you felt a bit fearful in Iran, and you talk about Ayers Rock and Niagara Falls. The fact that you, I presume you get to these places, you pull up on your bike, you have a look, you take a few pictures. Would it ever hit you in that moment you think, hell, I'm a long way from home on a motorbike?
Never.
Never?
No.
Wow.
I never thought about that. I never really thought about that at all. I mean, I started off and I was really, I mean, it was quite hard when I started. I remember, getting used to riding my bike for 5-6 hours a day sometimes. And, it's a lot of time on my own with my head in my helmet, a lot to think about. I was brokenhearted. I was trying to get over this guy that I was madly in love with. So I had a lot, I was working out a lot in my head, and going home was not one of them. I mean, that was not a thought. It was really, and I suppose I like to keep myself busy. So I would go from one place to one, and I did move quite quickly, across the States. I think 3.5 months I was across the States.
Wow. Did you see the breakup as a reason to continue in terms of, did it give you a bit of fire in your belly to thought, right, I'm going to prove I can do this for myself. I can live without him. I'm independent. You're clearly a very determined woman to do what you did. It must have been lonely at times and very, very tough. But did you see that journey as your rebuilding of yourself? Was that part of the process?
I think I saw the journey as a discovering of myself. I wouldn't say rebuilding. But discovering myself, and I think the journey gave me distance, which is what I needed. It gave me that
35,000 miles, a lot of distance.
So I don't know. It was. I mean, to me, it's just something I did. I don't really. I do find it quite. Weird that people now think that what I did is such an extraordinary thing, because to me it was just something I just kind of did it.
I think it's a credit to your personality. You're an extraordinary woman to do that, because even for someone to do that in this day and age with all the backup support they could have, I mean, to do it when you did it, you were fearless. And I think, hence your book has done so well as well. Your people are very, like me and Prut, genuinely, I'm so excited to talk to you. And I'm like this, because you talk about it like it's nothing, but what you did, it's all in any day.
I think as well,
it's awesome.
And it's the relativity of it all, because you think about, and Elspeth, you mentioned at the top about having children of your own, and we've got very close family friends whose grown-up children have gone to Australia, and I mean, you could probably WhatsApp them on the plane on the way over. You know what I mean? It's not. 40 years ago, I presume it would have been a phone call every few weeks, of maybe a letter that took months to get home. That element of the unknown, and it goes back again to what you said about us knowing, in inverted commas, everything at all times now, doesn't necessarily make anything any better, does it? Because
no, I don't think it makes anything better at all.
Because you're like chugging into these new countries that you've read about and maybe seen pictures of, but you're approaching it firsthand and getting firsthand experience. So it might be deemed a dangerous country, but hang on, everyone that I've met has been lovely. So that country isn't dangerous to me. It's been lovely to me. It's been friendly to me. It's helped me pass through without incident. So it sounds like seeing things with your own eyes has been possibly one of the major MOs of your life.
Yeah, and I really felt like I was like an explorer. I didn't. There's no way when I went to Thailand or Malaysia, or I really had any idea what to expect. I mean, just no idea at all. I mean, I'd managed to talk to a few other travelers coming the other way or something, but nobody on a motorbike, nobody riding or with their own transport. It was all, people with, with backpacks and whatever. So you really just had to find out as much as you could. But I think, but I actually really, I think have that feeling of being totally alone is something you can't get anymore,
Correct.
where
Correct.
absolutely nobody knows where you are.
Yeah.
Nobody knows where you are. And that's, a double-edged thing, because obviously, and I think that was probably my biggest, worry, was that I would be riding along the road, I'd fall off my bike or something, whatever, I'd slide off the road, end up in a ditch, not being able to move, and I'd just die. Because I didn't have nothing. I mean, I can't contact anybody. If nobody found me, that's it.
What about the logistics? What about the logistics of every day in terms of nowadays? You'd have it planned out. You'd be stopping at this hotel. You're going to ride 200 miles today, 300 tomorrow. Did you just call it a day when you got tired and you saw a B&B or somewhere at the side of the road? I mean, in terms of the actual planning, was there any days where you thought, I'm getting tired now, I desperately need to find somewhere to put my head down? I mean, I'm assuming you didn't plan ahead because you couldn't, because there was no internet.
No, I didn't plan ahead at all. I didn't book anything. Obviously, you couldn't book anything then. So I think, I mean, you probably could have sent somebody a fax, maybe. I don't know. I couldn't. So I mean, it kind of was different. I mean, so like in America, I used to stay a lot in the national parks, because you could camp there, but national parks were great. They were relatively safe, and so I would look at what choice of national parks I had within the distance that I thought I could ride in a day. And then I would give myself options. If I'm tired, I'll go there. If I'm not, I'll go there, and what there was to see. I mean, I very much decided where to go and on the hoof. In Australia, I just camped anywhere in the outback. I mean, it was just great. It was literally, you just camp anywhere. Then when I got to Southeast Asia, it was a bit more. So I sent my tent home from Southeast Asia. From Perth, from Australia, because it was so cheap to stay in places. You could stay in guest houses for like £1 a night or something. Well, it's not worth putting your tent up for that. So I stayed in guest houses, but I mean, I had a few rules. Like, I would never ride after dark. So I would always start looking for somewhere to stay at about 3 or 4 in the afternoon. And so that would give me an hour and a half or whatever to hopefully get in somewhere, find somewhere where I could park my bike safely off the road, and then I would be there for the night. So I think twice I ended up riding, at night time because of what events that happened during the day. But apart from that, I didn't. So, and then, so it was a whole kind of mixture of where I stayed. And I just used to drive up the streets and look for guest houses and hotels, and then I'd walk in and, what have you got? How much is it? Look at the bed. No, thank you. Go to the next one. And so you had to give yourself a certain amount of, an hour and a half or whatever to find somewhere.
It's funny. I mean, I've to say this sentence already makes me feel terrible, Elspeth. But having done a bit of motorcycle travel myself with a tent, and I mean over the channel a little bit. The thing that very quickly I lost interest in after spending long days in the saddle was being remotely asked to put a tent up in Square. You've got your head torch on, and you're going. And where are all the campsites at? They're always on the edge of town, aren't they? So you're like, well, I've got to park on the edge of town. Well, everywhere to eat's in town. All the good stuff's in town. And so for the couple of times I've done it, in the end, I was sod that. Just get me a nice cheap hotel that's where I can park the bike up for 10 hours and get on with what you're doing. But that ability to be able to be mobile, to be able to be just follow the day, really. And that sense of being, you mentioned it, about being just sat inside your helmet and alone with your thoughts, day after day after day. It just sounds, I mean, especially given what life's like now and how busy everything is, or how busy we've made life, it just seems so so idyllic. We talk a lot about mental health nowadays and its frameworks in slightly different ways. Do you feel that you came back from that trip as a different person?
Oh, completely different.
Mm.
It changed me for life.
Mm.
I was never going to be the same person again. I mean, in a lot of ways, it was good. I mean, I learned a lot about myself, the world, what I could do, what I was capable of, how far I could push myself, all those sorts of things. I learned that there really wasn't any problem I couldn't cope with or deal with or sort out, or it taught me how to deal with people, customs officials, all these trying to persuade them to let you into their country or whatever, in whatever way you have to try and do it. I don't know. I learned a lot. But I think the journey also made me quite a restless person because I had this incredibly intense and exciting 2 years traveling where every day was a challenge and sorting problems and doing this and just trying to find petrol would take hours sometimes, all this kind of stuff. Just the simplest of things in life were like incredibly difficult to do sometimes. And so you've got all these challenges and testing yourself the whole time. And so, and after you've sort of gone through that, then it's kind of hard to go back
Settle,
and to settle. And so I've always kind of needed another challenge, another project, another journey, something else to do. I mean, I've built a career as an architect. I've been running my own practice now 25 years or whatever, which has been the kind of, the sort of base, I suppose. But I've never stopped traveling, and I do find it quite hard to sit still.
In terms of your relationship with bikes, though, did you come back and have like a Steve Redgrave moment? Said, if anyone sees me near a boat again, shoot me. I mean, surely you must have had enough of a saddle. You must have thought, right, I'm having 6 months off motorbikes. Or was it now so much in your DNA that I know you still ride and we'll get onto that, but did you have enough? But was it a Forrest Gump moment? I'm tired. I think I'll go home now. When you got home, was that it?
It was for a while, I have to say. I don't think I looked at my bike for 6 months. I rode it home. I put it in the back of my parents' garage, and I didn't even look at it. I didn't unpack it. I mean, apart from taking my tank bag that had my passport, my money, and my camera, I just left it. I didn't even unpack it. And then but also the bike was, it was kind of, she'd had a hard life, and certainly the last 6 or 8 months trying to get her home, I really did have every day there was something I had to fix or bodge or try and repair just to keep her going. So after 6 months because it was really hard when I got home because nobody wanted to know what I'd done, and I was felt very lonely, very isolated. I had nobody to talk to. So I sort of locked myself in a basement for about 6 months. I mean, not literally, obviously I went out to eat and things, but, and then I thought, right, I got to get out of this. So I then decided to strip my bike down completely. So then I completely stripped it down, engine completely stripped down, and rebuilt it. And that gave me a kind of project. And that probably took me about 2.5 months or something to do. And then I decided to go back and finish off my architecture thing, because actually one thing that was also that was good that came out of the trip was that it kind of reignited my love for architecture. And so I completely ignored the fact I got a lousy degree, and I thought, right, I'm going to go back. I'm going to finish off my architecture training. So I went back and did and finished off my architecture piece. But I hated it. I mean, I just kind of felt I wanted to be out, on the road again all the time. So And then in '88, I found this derelict water tower, which
It looks amazing. I mean, Elspeth, just sorry to, but it looks amazing, and it's just having had the privilege of talking to you. You were never going into architecture to design new builds, were you? I know what I'll do. That big, great big water tower that no one's been in for ages. That'll do me.
well, it's a beautiful building.
It's gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
It's a lovely building, and so I found that in '88. In 1988, when I was still a student, actually, I hadn't qualified then. And I remember that the council, because no one had converted a water tower, and it's got all these problems because obviously the building regulations aren't written for a building like that. So there are all these issues with means of escape. I couldn't comply with all the regulations and blah, blah, blah. And so the council, I mean, I had to buy the thing at auction. And the council, I phoned them up and they said, we will never give you planning and listed building consent for change of use into a house. We just can't see how you're ever going to, you can't deal with all the issues. There's no way you can't do it. And I just remember thinking, yeah, I will. I just will. And it was this whole thing of, when you've dealt with all the problems that I had dealt with on the road, some sort of official in a council office telling me I can't do something was kind of, really? So I just kind of ignored it.
Yeah, your skill set for life, that 2-year journey really, as you said, in more ways than one set you up for life. It really did. In terms of bikes now, though, because obviously you said the good old girl was letting you down and you certainly know your way around an engine to fix it. In terms of modern bikes now, do you go for still the older bike that you can work on, or do you like the modern style bikes?
Well, I've got 5 motorbikes actually. I've got my old R60, which I still ride. Which she goes pretty well, but she's got all these funny foibles with her. The brakes are rubbish, and the horn doesn't work, and the indicators don't really work, and all that kind of stuff. But
Elspeth, then hipsters use those now for cafe races. You had one 40 years ago around the world.
I tell you, I do not like that. They shouldn't.
Ripping them apart.
They destroy them.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then I've got an old 75/5, which is 53 years old. My everyday bike, which I actually consider as quite a modern bike, is my R80 GS Basic, and that's a 1998.
Nice.
But it's the sort of last of the airheads, so it's got no electronics at all. And I have ridden. I mean, I'm very fortunate now. I get invited to ride bikes all over the world and join tours here and whatever. And so I get given all sorts of bike to ride. And I just look at all this stuff and I'm thinking, why do I need all this? I don't want ABS. I'll just ride the bike, I don't need all these aids. I don't need rain mode and sport mode and whatever freaking mode. Just leave it alone. And so I really do not like all. I just think it's all so unnecessary, and it's just stuff to go wrong.
I bet as well, Elspeth. I bet it's not a fear of it, but it's a healthy mistrust of things you can't fix yourself.
Exactly. I do not want to be on the side of some road somewhere and the ABS packs up or whatever, or some stupid sensor in whatever that tells me information that I don't care about is broken and I can't start the engine and I can't fix it. That's what I don't like. But I'm old school.
Yeah. I mean, old school in the most glorious of ways. And we've spoken to you, we've chewed your ear off, hung on your every word. I mean, when it comes to the privilege that you've got now off the back of the experience that you've had, and the way that maybe there's a sliding doors moment maybe where you don't have heartache and this life isn't yours. You know what I mean? It's you might have been an architect way before you wanted to be, needed to be, and living in London, and it might be a completely different life we're talking about now. But given what you've done, given the experience that you've got, could you give us a semblance of advice that you'd give to people that are potentially contemplating this, maybe dreaming of what you've done? Is the one bona fide piece of advice that you tell them to get them up off the backsides and in the saddle?
Well, I mean, I think one of the hardest things is leaving. And actually, once you leave, you realise how easy it is. It's really not that difficult. I think, now there's so much fear instilled in people through everything that they get told and hear, and that, but it's just, you just have to get out and try, and you'll be amazed, and you will work it out. You'll work it out as you go. And you'll be amazed how easy it is to do. It's really not difficult. It really isn't. And it's not just me saying that. It really isn't difficult.
No, you're right. And I think it's all about that mindset. And honestly, you've been so charming to talk to. And I love the way how you simplify something so huge. What you did, if you like it or not, you were a trailblazer, and you literally... You've inspired so many people. And if they've not read your book, they really should. And I just think it's amazing. Now, we normally finish with a question asking someone about their fantasy ride and where would they go, what bike would they go on.
Good luck with that one, Ewan.
I think we've covered, haven't we, Prutz, in terms of you have, as they say nowadays, you've completed it, tick, that you have done the ultimate ride, because you've literally been everywhere, and you found yourself, and you found, I'm sure, so much beauty in the world. And yeah, it's just honestly, I've just been sat here in amazement, Prutz, with the story you've told, because you make it sound like, it's easy, and it is easy, but I'm sure it wasn't. And what you did and continue to inspire people, it's awesome, isn't it, Prutz?
Yeah, and what it would, and what has really jumped at us, but is the perspective it's given you on life and how you approach life. There is that double-edged sword of, as you say, coming back and not really knowing your place. But I bet there was maybe a bit where you want to walk into the local and just make eye contact. Been up to much? Well, actually, now that you've asked me that, yes, I've been around the world for 2 years. But because it's so relevant to you, and so it's just been fundamental for the way that your life's panned out, hasn't it? And the perspective that you've got from it as you sit there as a very composed individual. There can't be many things that get chucked your way that you think, nah, I can't do that.
No, I don't think there's anything I can't do if I put my mind to it.
I mean, we could talk to you all day. We have taken up so much of your time. Your adventures are absolutely inspiring, Elspeth. But sadly, that's it for this week's Full Chat, powered by Bike Show. As the UK's largest independent motorcycle insurance broker, Bike Show will tailor a quote to your exact needs, maybe riding around the world, and help save you money on your annual bike, scooter, or moped insurance, and so much more.
Yeah, I said at the start the word legend, and honestly, Elspeth, you have been an absolute joy to talk to, and I hope we've covered most of it. If we haven't, then the book, The Lone Rider, is out there, and it's a must for people to purchase. Brilliant. Get it, read about your journey, be inspired, because you've left us literally speechless today. I've loved chatting to you.
Thank you.
Don't forget to press subscribe for YouTube so that you never miss an episode, or press the follow button on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Yeah, thank you so much as ever for listening. Until next time, goodbye.